Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Testing 1, 2. Can you hear me? I'm making some changes here. You know what? I'm just gonna I saw that at the end, Lucas, you're right. What just happened? Why is this doing this? Come on. What just happened? Can you guys hear me? Are you there? Anybody here? All right, good. You guys are popping in here. Something very strange. I know what's going on. Stop that. There we go. You guys are like, what's going on? I saw you there at the end, Lucas, but you have another whole half hour. True. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to finish my notes. Where did I? Yeah. I'll finish my Bible every morning notes, and then I'll get to updating you as you guys pile in here. All right. Let's just say hi to everybody. Let's do that. Mitch, first one in here, at least first one with a comment. Hi, Mitch, Carrie, Lucas, AC, Chloe. Good to see you all. And anybody else who piles in afterwards. All right. So where was I? Jeremiah. Let's move back. I did move on to Mark real quick, but Jeremiah 17. Oops. Just not a major comment, just an observation. And I like to, well, I don't know if I like to, it just happens as we read through the scriptures, though. Every now and then, a phrase that stands out to me, you guys know me, a phrase will stand out and I'll point it out and probably not have a very good explanation. But so in verse 13, it's just a phrase that I don't know what it means. And it's curious to me. So it's right here. Oh Lord, the hope of Israel, all who forsake you shall be put to shame. Right. So now we're knowing this is the next part of this verse is referring to something negative, right? Oh Lord, the hope of Israel, all who forsake you shall be put to shame. Those who turn away from you shall be written in the earth. For they have forsaken the Lord, the fountain of living water. I don't know what that means. Shall be written in the earth. Again, that phrase, heavens and earth, the heavens and the earth, is a phrase that has, it's pregnant with meaning, right? There's the literal heavens and earth, which is, if you look at the horizon, everything above the horizon is the heavens and everything below the horizons is the earth. That's the literal, but it goes all the way to the meaning of the heavens and the earth being your political and religious leaders, right? The heads, those who control the society, those who control human activities or whatever. And so that phrase, heavens and the earth. And so whenever you see those words used independently, it often is still a reference to that. So written in the earth, I don't know, go to hell, right? Or where is the earth? Where is hell? In the earth, in the bowels of the earth? Is that what this is referring to? I kind of think that's what it's referring to, but written in the earth. Maybe their names will be written down, recorded forever in the hearts and minds of men. No, I don't know. Again, it's just a phrase that it's poetry as well. So I mean, obviously, it's in the context of poetry, but poetry is a way of conveying deeper meaning than just prose. Just dictation. Poetry conveys something even deeper that words can't, fully convey. That's why I love poetry. Okay, back to Mark now, where it kind of left off. They watched chapter 3, verse 2. They watched Jesus to see whether he would heal him, this man with the withered hand, on the Sabbath, so that they might accuse him. The twisted mind of somebody who's possessed by Satan. It's more common than you would think, right? Anybody who's going about seeking to accuse others, like pointing out flaws, to bringing about judgment, That's the satanic spirit. It's literally satanic. Anybody who goes about to criticize and for criticism's sake, not to encourage, not to correct. They would say, "Oh well, I'm just trying to correct. He's breaking the law. It's the Sabbath." Right? And that's what they would justify. That if put to the judge and jury, they're like, well, I'm just wanting, if people break the law, then there's upheaval, and we can't have lawbreakers. He's healing people, right? This is the twisted mind of those who are possessed by Satan or obsessed with Satan. Satan, the word Satan, the name means the accuser. So this is a reference to their father. They watched Jesus to see whether he would heal him on the Sabbath so that they, the children of Satan, might fulfill the name accusers, right? 11. I just always, every time I come across this, it just stands out. It's one little sentence that we pass over as we read this voluminous text, the Holy Bible, and it's just one little sentence that says so much. And whenever the unclean spirits, let me go on a bit of a tangent here. I know you guys want some updates, but I'm going to spend some more time in the word because I just love the word. Unclean spirits. Why is the phrase unclean? Why isn't it demons? Right? Because it uses demons, and it is kind of interchangeable. But this expression, unclean spirits, has a very specific reason. What does it mean to be unclean? If you go into the Old Testament, and this is some theological argumentation that I have heard that I'm inclined, I'm leaning in that direction. So to be unclean, for example, you're commanded not to put new wine into old wineskins, or not to mix two different types of materials, weave them together, right? Those things are considered unclean. When you're mixing two different kinds of things, is referred to as unclean. And the theory or the theological argument is these unclean spirits are unclean because they are the spirits of the Nephilim. Who are the Nephilim? The merging of two kinds of things, human and watchers, or the fallen, the demonic angels, right? That's where the Nephilim came from. It's a mixture, an unclean mixture of two kinds of things. And then they were destroyed, yet their spirits become demons. And I hadn't heard that argument, or that I've been a Christian for 35 plus years, and I hadn't heard that until about 5 years ago for the first time. I'm like, because we, growing up in a Christian culture, Christian society, we angels and demons. It's this very clean, binary, right? Angels and demons, and we have all this, a third of the angels fell with Satan, and so there's a third of all the heavenly hosts have become demons, and it's that cut and dried. There's angels and demons, and it's this war like that, and that's way, way simplistic. First of all, nowhere in the Bible does it say a third of the angels rebelled and became demons. It doesn't say it. There's a reference in Revelation that the dragon's tail, I think, or something, swept a third of the stars from heaven, right? And that's an extrapolation from Revelation to some other event, right? And so, but that's okay. So that's something I want to try and break us of that assumption, right? That's an interpretation. That's not gospel, right? A third of the angels fell, but it's become so etched in stone. We've become like Pharisees. Anybody who stiffens their spine and says that's absolutely the gospel, that's what the Bible says. Anybody who stiffens their spine when I say that's not gospel, that's the spirit of Pharisaism, right? The traditions of men above the gospel, right? So this notion of angels and demons becomes this binary, but God created the heavenly hosts, and all through scripture we see there's kind of a hierarchy, right? It's not so cut and dried as just angels and demons. There's a whole world that we can't see that has rankings and different roles and titles and the divine council. What's that? He's surrounded by a bunch of angels. Or wait a minute, when we see the the righteous dead, right? How do they play into this? And there is the word Elohim itself, right? The word Elohim. Well, until I heard this teaching or a teaching uh, similar to it, Elohim was always the name of God, right? Like there's uh, a name for God, right? There's Jehovah, there's Elohim, there's El, um, but Elohim literally means disembodied spirit, right? And it's a plural, Elohim, and so like the spirit of Samuel when King Saul went to the witch at Endor, Samuel, the righteous disembodied dead, is referred to as an Elohim. All right. So there's a bunch of stuff that we've assumed a certain way just because we like things to be clean and tidy in our minds. Is like it's way more complicated than that. All right. So this is a major tangent. You guys want updates too? Well, I've got just one more note after this, but let me finish this this note on verse 11, where whenever the unclean spirits saw him, Jesus, in other words, they're possessing somebody and using those human eyes, right? With unclean spirits possessing a human host, with those human eyes, those unclean spirits see Jesus. They fell down before him and cried out, "You are the Son of God." What? What? Okay, we're talking about entities that are possessing another entity. A human is an entity, and an unclean spirit is an entity. And so those unclean spirits can see things that we can't see, right? So they're using the human eyes to see Jesus's physical form, but because they're non-physical entities, they see more. They see something different about Jesus. Where you and I would see just a man walking along, they see probably this glowing figure that's different than anything else in creation. And they point it out verbally through their host, whoever they're possessing. You are the Son of God, right? The one and the only. And in the story of the Gadarene demoniac, they say, you are the Most High, Son of the Most High, which puts Jesus at the highest rank of all creation. He's the uncreated being, the Son of the Most High. And I just love that. That's why I've spent so much time on that. And Jesus says, "Be quiet, don't tell anybody," because the crowds again. Oh, all right. Finally, verse 21. Last note before I update you guys on some stuff. And he went home. Wait, that verse 20. And then he went home, and the crowd gathered again, so they could not even eat. And it's him and his disciples, and they're like, we can't even sit down and have a meal because everybody is clamoring to be next to be near, to touch, to be in the presence of Jesus. So verse 21. And so he's at home, in his hometown, in his own house. And when his family heard it, well, he's not in his house because they went out to seize him. When his family heard it, they went out to seize him, for they were saying he is out of his mind. Now, this says family, his family. And then later on in this chapter, it says his mother and brothers. And so there's a distinction here. So maybe when it says his family, it included his mother and brothers and aunts and uncles and cousins and maybe a grandparent or two. I don't know. I think it was probably a larger group, and then they kind of had to disperse as Jesus was continuing. Then it boiled down to just his mother and brothers. So this is probably Jesus's uncles or those kind of relatives, the males in the family. They're like, "Mary, get a hold of your boy. Uh, he's causing a problem. He's gonna make life difficult for us. He's drawing too much attention. He's he's stirring things up." And that's a common reaction to when a person starts doing something really good, but can be I mean, anybody who becomes famous, for example, anybody who becomes famous instantly their haters or their detractors increase, right? That they're not known and then they're known, and a percentage of people that learn who they are for one reason or another hate them. Maybe sometimes it's purely because that person's famous and I'm not, right? It's an envy, an embitterment. And then there's other justifications for it. But a person who becomes famous, their pool of haters expands. But what also expands is their pool of lovers and followers, and that expands even more so. So it makes the hate worth doing, right? If you're doing good, right? And so, but one of the justifications for the haters is their way of life is being disrupted, right? The way things have always been is being shaken up, and people are averse to change. And so Jesus's family are going to be the first detractors. Well, not the first, obviously. We had demons and unclean spirits, but they're closest people to you are often going to be very resistant to the change that's coming. That's something I have to be mindful of. It's like, oh, if my thing is, I already have haters and detractors in my family. And I'll leave that there. All right. I'm referring to you. My wife heard me say, I have haters and detractors in my family. And she looks at me, I'm not referring to you, my love. All right. So on that note, here's an update. I'm just looking at the comments. Yeah, kind of riveting stuff. I'm glad you guys are amazing. I do appreciate this time. I love hanging out with you, but you're not my favorite thing. I love hanging out with Jesus, right? Because it's the word of God. And when we are hanging out together, it's the spirit of the Lord is in our midst. So I'm glad you guys are here, but I'm even more glad that it's the Lord. All right. So, um, quick updates. We've just done 3 days of hosting, 3 days of hosting in our home, and that's a record for us. I don't know if we've even done 2 days back to back, but we probably have. But last night was the third day in a row of hosting a bunch of people over. And last night, we had planned it, or my lovely wife said, we should have so and so over next week. And I'm like, absolutely. And so we had six friends that are all specifically associated with the project. So three of those six were Armenian and three of them were not. And I love that. I love that, how that falls in line. I've told you guys about that meeting I had with the 12 when I said I'm going to have just a spontaneous gathering, invite a bunch of people, and just and it was like 2 days notice or something, and I ended up getting 12 people there. And in that instance, six of them were Armenian and six of them were non-Armenian. So so last night it was 3 and 3, and it just works out that way. It's not like I'm saying, I got this many, now I got to get that. It just happens. So um hosting is a lot of work. So I was doing dishes at 12:15. It's fine. It's worth it. I love it. So let's see. What are the updates? So we have an event coming on August 8th. And it's been an exercise in volunteer management, like people volunteering to do stuff. And one of the things I learned from ministry when I was a youth pastor. When I was a youth pastor, I remember I was an associate. It was a large church. So I was an associate youth pastor. So there's a head youth pastor, right? So I had a boss, and he was my friend. And one of the things he pointed out to me, and it's a sheer brilliance. You're going to have people coming to you all the time. In ministry, you're a leader. You're going to have people coming to you all the time, and some of them come with ideas and suggestions and advice. right? And when you're a leader, you got so much on your plate, and other people coming to you saying, "You should this, you should that." What he said to do is, when people come to you with ideas, give it to them. And that's not the words he used, but I'm summarizing. The peanut gallery over here commented, no. When somebody comes to you with an idea, you don't want to squash them, or you don't want to break their spirits. You don't want to discourage people. Depending on what they say, but generally people are coming with ideas and advice and suggestions out of, a genuine, sincere, you know, desire to help. But when you're a leader and your plate is more full than you can handle already, you can't take every that's why being a pastor is the hardest job. Being a minister is like the craziest, hardest job. But when somebody comes with an idea, say, "Great, do it." Right? Turn it back on them. They have an idea. You, the ministry, the church should, the project, you do this. And you're like, "Excellent, do that." Do that. So that, you put it in their lap, and they're like, then they have to reassess and reevaluate. Oh, can I do this? What would it take? Um, that you start thinking more in depth about what's involved. And so that's volunteer management, really. And that's what I've been dealing with. And all the volunteers that help have been extremely productive and helpful. Right. So I'm not detracting from that at all. But this event on the 8th was one of those volunteers coming saying, "I have done some events. I want to do one that promotes you." And I'm like, "Excellent, do it." And there was a communication breakdown where they were assuming that I was jumping on to the bandwagon to pull out all the stops to commandeer this thing and make it happen me. And I don't have the bandwidth for that. I'm doing far more important things. Yes, the thing is for me to raise money to help, but that's not my highest priority. I have a business plan that's in process. I have billionaires waiting on me. I've got people with lots of money that are like, as soon as you have that business plan together, I will put you next to this guy, right? And I have billionaires that I met face to face that are very interested. And it's like, I the most important thing to me is getting that business plan into their hands. And so I now have a team members that are focused on that, right? High level. That's the high level. That's the most important thing to me. And then I've got this low level event, which is a great event that I want to happen, that I want to be a part of and I want to help with. But the person whose idea it was, I think was confused about what this, how it was going to happen. And so they're making progress, but I don't know if it's a communication issue, and the buck stops with me. Like, I have failed in getting everybody on the same page, and as that date approaches, it's like, "Wait, what's going on?" And so we're working those things out. So far, it's still on the calendar. So far, it's still moving forward, and I have, yesterday taken a huge leap in getting everybody on the same page, and in some communications that I made to the different members of the team. Because essentially what's happened is there's been a division. It's like one person expecting one thing, uh, and then when some of the other team members were coming in to provide support, that being rejected and causing some division, right? When you're managing a bunch of volunteers, it's a very complex scenario that's not going to get easier as this project continues to there's going to be more and more of this. So this is all a test for me to, testing my leadership skills. And when I sent this one message to the one group yesterday saying basically what I was saying here, the buck stops with me. I failed at getting us on the same page. Here's my attempt to reconcile my failings, and I sent it to the people that needed to hear it, and then I copied it and sent it to the higher level people who are also associated. And my boss, my chief of staff, the person who's really helping me stay focused. Once I sent that and showed her what I sent, she goes, it's been a long time coming, or this is the thing that needed to happen. I'm like, okay, my instincts led me in the right direction. I communicated correctly, and it's not been resolved yet. And I'm speaking in ambiguities for a reason. I don't want to besmirch anyone. I don't want to cast aspersions on anyone. This is learning to manage volunteers, because a time's coming when they're not going to be volunteers. They're going to be staff. They're going to be paid, right? And the expectations of people have to be, we have to get, you know, a, it's all happening. Sometimes it happens in a messy way before things get clean and clear. And that's what I'm going through. So just pray for the team, pray for those who may feel butthurt or sidelined or discouraged, because none of this is intended to hurt anyone's feelings. And that's what we're dealing with. Some sensitivities, um, some, some people who have vision and passion. I don't want to quash that. I don't want to squash that. I want their energies to be productive. But for example, a fire, scripture points this out. I should have a verse that encapsulates this. But fire is damaging and healing, right? Fire can destroy and bring life. And so, what do you need? A fireplace, right? You need the constraints for that fire. And I'm trying to build those constraints for the fire and the passion that people have for this project. And it's moving in the right direction. And I just need to keep those flames contained rather than getting out, because my name and my efforts are associated with this, right? And so I have to, I lack certain skills, and so that makes me sometimes a reluctant leader. It's like, there's things that I've got too much on my plate. I don't know how to deal with this, but thank God he's putting people in my life. Here's the irony. One of the most important people that God has put in, the one I refer to, Christine, the one I refer to as my chief of staff, she's an atheist and a leftist, right? And then she's, and it's like, she is absolutely 100% on board with this project. And, she knows I'm a Christian, right? And, a Trump supporter, if you will, right? She knows that. And some people say, "Oh, that's worrisome. Oh, she may be there to undermine you." She is not here to undermine me. She's Armenian and understands the importance of this project, right? And so that's my protection. Like I can walk into Donald Trump's office, and I can walk into Kamala Harris's office, right? Equally, and tell about this project and not talk politics, not talk about division, not talk about corruption, not talk about any of that thing about that, but talk about this thing that's critical and important. And both of them would agree. Right? That's like the superpower I have. Solomon Talerian is my superpower. He transcends all of the divisions that I've ever experienced, and it's a joy. So, Mark, yeah, I am not going to ignore that. You were there? Wait, what? Okay, so I was talking about this the other day as an example. When Jesus was baptized, everybody present saw something supernatural happen. The heavens opened, a voice came down, right? This is my son. Like everybody that was physically and geographically uh, present when Jesus was baptized, witnessed something. And that is a special group. That crowd saw, something no one else ever saw or ever will see, right? They were privileged. And I was using that in reference to the assassination attempt. Everybody present that saw it firsthand was treated to something special, treated to something historic, something divine, something that changed the course of human history. It did. It changed. It is like the failure of that to meet its target, right? That projectile, the failure of that to connect with its target was divine. And that's the other thing, right? Just like those people that witnessed Jesus being baptized, that was something freakish and crazy. And they were not afraid. And that's what made this miraculous. It's like God's like, watch this. Watch what I'm going to do. Watch. 5 days later, the president drops out, or however many days later, like the opposition is in total disarray. The enemy divided against itself shall not stand. A kingdom divided against itself shall not stand. That's what's happening on the left. All right. Love you guys. See ya tomorrow.